Everything in my life is great right now, yet I still don't fully trust it.
Look at the squash.
Her cheeks are glazed already, honey.
Yeah, that's right, girl.
So, a little over 3 months ago, my fiance and I welcomed our baby girl into the world at the end of December. So, she's a little over 3 months old, uh, healthy, seems happy, um, and it's really just been this kind of whirlwind experience. It's my first child, as I've said previously on this channel, at 47 years old. A little bit of a late start here on fatherhood, um, but I feel like Janelle and I's relationship is strong. There's just so much for me to be grateful for and to feel that gratitude, on a daily basis, which I do. What I wanted to talk about today, though, was something that I didn't realize wouldn't just fix itself the second my daughter was born. And that is this feeling that the other shoe is going to drop, that there's these great things that have happened to me in the last 3 months, 12 months, really throughout my life. But at some point, they're either going to be like taken away from me or something awful is going to come in to balance it out. And I understand that that's life to a certain extent. But I initially was writing down some things for this video that I was feeling. And it's interesting how journaling about it a little bit made me realize that I actually think I'm closer to explaining the why than I thought I was. It's kind of clear to me that being an older new dad means, at the very fundamental sort of level, I've just been alive longer than I would have been had I had a kid at 30 or 25. And with that comes additional life experience, previous relationships. I've been married in the past. My ex wife and I attempted to start our own family through IVF, which did not work. So, when things like that happen in your mid 30s, for example, 9, 10, 12 years later, I do think it's kind of easy to fall into this trap of, well, I kind of just made peace with the fact that fatherhood, for example, just wasn't going to happen for me. And so when like this ultimate blessing comes along and it does happen, I'm finding these little subtle ways to not get my hopes up. And I'm going to do my best to describe that feeling, and you may or may not have experienced it before. For me, it's this feeling of trying to manage expectations, and something I've done that I'm not terribly proud of or would like to remedy is the strategy that I've sort of deployed for managing expectations has just simply been to expect the least or expect the worst, which has been a sad transition for me because for the longest time in my life I was definitely an optimist, glass half full guy. And I've realized since I found out that Janelle was pregnant is that my way of not getting my hopes up, my way of not being let down, is to expect to be let down or to expect something like, oh, this is this great thing happening over here. Well, hold on, let's see if something awful comes in to balance it out. Um, you know, I'm not a psychologist. I probably a therapist would tell me that this has a lot to do with my father leaving me when I was 2 years old. Uh, sure. I'm not here to blame it on him or anybody else. Um, but I will say, to share a quick stories that when we found out Janelle was pregnant, when she took her first pregnancy test, um, her and I joke about this a lot, but I think it's pretty telling is that she came in with the test, hadn't looked at it, crawled back into bed in the morning, handed me the test, and we, sort of looked at it together. And it said pregnant. And instead of being overjoyed, instead of giving her a hug, which I ultimately, ended up doing, and just being, really happy about it, the first words out of my mouth were, "We'll see." And we laughed about it at the time, but if I'm being completely honest, that's how I felt. Now, some of that had to do with, a family member going through some pregnancy struggles mere weeks prior, and a lot of it had to do with my previous experience with, an ex that was, taking various steroids and drugs and hormones and attempting to, conceive through IVF and having it not work through multiple trials. And I was much younger then, and my ex was about the same age as Janelle is now. So there was this feeling of, I think it kind of made like this, it compounded everything, so you have this base, almost like you're building a burger, and the bun on the bottom is this base of, well, I was abandoned as a baby. Okay. And then you've got the meat, you throw that on there, and that is just another layer. And for me, that would have been, the IVF not taking 10 years prior and sort of coming to grips with, I'm never going to be a dad now, because that ultimately played into our divorce, etc. And then, the additional layer of a family member going through their own struggles, a little bit older. And then just me using the strategy, I guess, of trying to adjust and maybe not form expectations, but instead taking a shortcut, which is, well, if I expect the worst, I can never be let down. I can only, be surprised pleasantly. Problem is, it doesn't work that way. At least it doesn't for me. When you expect the worst and you're living in that mindset, it colors everything. And I'm going to check in with Janelle and see, what she thinks about, this for herself, but also what she notices with me. But I do want to put a bow on it in the sense that, this is something that I've identified previous to my daughter's birth, but it was easy to put on a back burner. And then something as life-changing and overwhelmingly positive, like, we're pregnant, and we were trying to be, get pregnant, and it worked. Instead of just living in that, I just found ways to be like, oh, I hope it's real. I hope it takes. I hope we have no issues. And then that was what I kind of fixated on, future stuff. And I'm going to close with, I do think one of the beautiful byproducts of my daughter's birth, for me as a man and as an adult, and as someone who always seeks to grow, to learn from my past and try to evolve, is I've only been a dad for like 3 months, okay? I've said it before here. But at the same time, every moment with that little girl, with that baby, forces me to stay present. I'm a chronic overthinker. I'm an Aquarius, for whatever that matters. People say that that's a trait I have. The stars have told me. But when I'm with my daughter, it forces me to be present and now. It's clears my head a little bit. It can be stressful. It can be nerve-wracking. I could be, but even if that's what's happening, even if she's wailing, I'm present and I'm not thinking about, what if, and I'm just kind of reacting to exactly what's in front of me in real time, which for somebody like me is very refreshing. It's being more present is something that I am striving for a lot this year. And honestly, throughout the life of my daughter, especially being an older father and realizing that I've got, I don't know. Who knows if I got 30 years left? God, that's morbid. All right, let's check in with Janelle. Do you ever feel like things are going really well and you're just waiting for something to go wrong?
No, I don't. I feel like I take every day and I'm careful. I don't think anything's ever just going to be like, oh my God, terrible, knock on wood. I guess I have those thoughts, but not like I just shoo them away.
And from your perspective, do I seem like I struggle to relax into things being good?
Yes. always.
Explain.
I just feel like the way you always look ahead at things too. You're always like, what if, or when is this going to happen? Like there's the constant, like, all the other thoughts that you concentrate on rather than just being like, oh, look at her, she's happy right now. And that's what I focus on.
All right. Till next time.